Hello and good day, pre-algebra. We are continuing in PO26, the percent equation. And yesterday we got through looking at how to solve questions such as these using proportions. And the three pieces of our percent equation, the part, the whole, and the percent. We practice identifying what those are and then putting them in the correct place. Now, what clues did we use to help us identify a part, a whole, and a percent when we're looking at questions such as what we have in the Mr. Heavy Pencil section here? How do we identify? What clues can we look for to help us identify the part, the whole, and the percent? Camille.
The is of.
Yeah, what does the word is kind of tie to?
The part.
The part, okay? When you see the word is, you know the part is somewhere around it, okay? The more telling clue, though, is what, okay? The word of. What comes after of is usually going to be the whole. There are some exceptions, but usually you can count on it being the whole. And then the percent is going to have the percent sign, right? Or the word percent. So that one's pretty easy to pick out, but it's the part and the whole that we had a little more practice with, okay? And what is the percent equation written as a proportion? Look at your notes yesterday if you were here or if you copied it down from yesterday's video. What does it look like? Haley? Right. Part over whole equals percent over 100. Or to shorten that up, just P over W equals percent over 100. And what we did yesterday was we practiced using that proportion setup to answer these three questions here. If you missed it, you can go back and take a look at it. But cross products was also kind of a method that we talked about to go over that. Okay. The equation, which is what we're going to talk about today, uses these same three pieces: part, whole, percent. But it's more of an equation setup rather than proportions. So I said yesterday, if you like fractions, if you like proportions, this is the one for you. If you like solving for a variable in an equation, then you might like this setup better. Okay? And this equation looks like this. The part equals the percent times the whole. Okay? The part is equal to the percent times the whole, or kind of break it down using more just variables. Part equals percent times W. Okay, so we're going to answer these same three questions using the equation method versus the proportion method. So if you left enough space here to write, then do it right on this page. If you didn't yesterday, if you fill up all these notes using proportion, then just do the same three questions on the back side, or a blank page next to you, or whatever, right? You got the space for it here. Okay. But again, what number is 35% of 70? What piece of this question represents the part? And again, we have this from yesterday, but if you weren't here, kind of a chance to get caught up. Dayton.
The what number?
Right, the what number is our part. And you see the word is there, right? And so that's going to represent our part. What is our percent? Okay, 35%. It's got that symbol right there for you. And then what is our whole? The only one that's left. We see the word of, and that's going to be our whole. So in this case, we're solving for the part, right? You have the proportion work written down, but using the equation, P equals percent times W, we're going to plug in what we know. We don't know the part, so we're going to leave that variable. The percent is 35%, and since we're doing this as an equation, Jack, what are you doing?
Drawing.
On someone else's binder?
Yeah.
In the outside world, we call that graffiti and vandalism. Drawing on something that is not your own property. We're going to write this percentage as a decimal. Okay? So we're going to write 35% as 0.35. And the reason for that is when you're solving and you're working with an equation, working with that percentage as a decimal is more convenient than working with the percentage as a fraction like we did with the proportion. Right? So like I said, if you like fractions, if you like proportions, you can use that percentage as a fraction. If you like an equation, you like decimals, you can use this in a decimal form. And then we're multiplying this by 70. Now the nice part about this is that our variable is already by itself, isn't it? P is already alone on the left side of the equation. So to solve this, all we got to do is multiply 0.35 times 70. Carter?
Can I go back?
Sure. Okay.
Will like the question, like what number is 35% of 70, always be in that order? Or percent whole?
Cade's kind of noticing here that the way this question's phrased is kind of the exact same order that our formula is set up. And in fact, if you look at the other two questions, you'll see that it's also in the exact same order. Usually, yeah. It's kind of nice. Okay? It's kind of nice. But what is 0.35 times 70? Who's got that calculation? Or Kate?
24.5.
And did we get 24.5 as an answer yesterday when we used the proportion method?
Yeah.
Yes. So we can be confident that we are correct. Okay? But the advantage of this one, that variable already being by itself, we didn't really have to do any movement. We just had to simplify that right side. Why?
So for everyone, are you gonna make it a decimal instead of a percent?
When you're using the equation method, yes.
Okay.
Yep. When you're using the proportion method, it's written as a fraction anyway, so you want to stick with that. 48 is what percent of 120? What's our part here? What's our part? Lexi?
48.
48. 48 is, you see the word is, that's going to be our part. What's our percent? What's our percent? Someone new? Shay?
Just the word percent.
Right. What percent? In this case, this is what we are solving for. Yeah. And what's our whole? Tony. 120. Follows that word up. Okay. So using that equation method, P equals percent times W. The P is 48. We know that this time. We don't know the percent, so we're going to leave that as a percent symbol. And our W, our whole, is 120. Okay? There's a little bit more work to do for this one than the last one because what we're solving for isn't already by itself. But think back to how you solve an equation. If we're multiplying our percent by 120, how do we undo that? Abby?
You divide
Yes.
120 by 120.
We'll be dividing both sides by 120, right? Back to last unit here to cancel that 120 out. And what is 48 divided by 120? Haley? 0.4. Okay. Now the one little quirk with this equation method here, is that this is given to us as a decimal. We have to convert this to a percent. Right? That's why we kind of keep this as a percent symbol, maybe to remind us that 0.4 is the decimal we get, but what percentage does 0.4 represent? 40%. Okay? So the one little extra step here, that one little quirk, is you have to then convert it to a percentage. And so your answer isn't 0.4, your answer is 40%, which should be the same answer we got yesterday. Colin.
Do you get a calculator for this part of the test?
You will get a calculator for this part of the test. Yes, you can use a calculator from CO24 and onward. Yes, indeed. No, thank me. I'm the one that allows it. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions on this one? Okay, last one. 18 is 25% of what number? What are we solving for? The whole, right? 18 is our part, 25% is our percent, and of what number is our whole? That's what we don't know. So setting this up in the equation, P equals percent times whole, part equals percent times whole. 18 is the part, 25%, but how are we going to write it? 0.25 as a decimal. And we're multiplying that by our whole, which is what we're solving for. Okay.
72.
Oh, are we just shouting numbers, or does that mean something?
That's the answer.
Oh, how'd you get it?
Oh, I did the proportion.
We all did the proportion way yesterday,
Yeah.
but we are living in the present. We're doing the equation method. How would you solve this equation to get 72, which is the correct answer? But how would you solve this equation to get 72?
Multiply those two.
Nope. Kate?
It's the percent out of 100, and if it's 25%, that means it's 1/4 of
Okay.
100, so if I just did 18 times 4.
Okay, and so that's kind of working with proportions and fractions, right? That's what we talked about yesterday, and you are right. If you want to do it that way, but I want to highlight the equation method here, since that's what we're talking about today. Haley, how would you solve this equation?
I will divide 0.25
Yes.
and 18 by 25.
Good. Since we are multiplying our whole by 0.25, kind of like we did in the one previous to this, we're going to be dividing both sides by 0.25 to cancel this out. Right? What Kate said is right. What Kate said is right. But using the equation method, this is kind of our operations method to solve this. 18 divided by 0.25 equals 72, which equals W. Okay? Yes?
Doesn't matter which way we use on the test.
No. And if you can do this in a different way, that's I think was Lexi yesterday kind of brought up a shortcut. If you want to use that too, as long as you get the correct answer, then
I don't remember which
life is good.
No,
Right? These are just different ways that you can set it up. Questions on this? Okay, let's look at page number 2 of PO26, not 56. What are we on? 26. It used to be 56. Okay. It says answer each question below showing your work, and if you get decimal answers, you can round to nearest 10. It says your bookshelf has 150 books in it. 20% are on the top shelf, 50% are on the middle shelf, and 30% are on the bottom shelf. How many books are on each shelf? We just got done talking about how we can use the words is or of to help us here, but I don't see an is or an of anywhere in the question. Do you think that was intentional?
Yeah.
Of course it was, right? So we have to kind of think about this. You know, what is going to be our part? What's our percent? What's our whole? What are we solving for here? Okay? We want to know how many books are on each shelf. Let's just kind of, you don't have to draw this, but, me being such a great artist, I like to draw stuff. Here's our bookshelf. Okay? How many books are there total? 150. And 20% of that on the top shelf, 50% of that of the 150 on the middle shelf, and 30% of the 150 on the bottom shelf. So what are we solving for here? Jack?
The part.
We want to know the part. What part of the 150, what part of the whole is on the top shelf? What part, well, that's percent, but how many books is that, right? What part of the 150 is on the middle shelf? What part of the 150 is on the bottom shelf? So there's actually 3 calculations they have to do here, right? Where do you want to start? Okay.
Didn't you just divide 20 by 150? I was thinking of what we do in that room for our spelling test. Or not spelling test.
So,
Like when you get a test score back?
No, like vocab.
for grammar,
Like to calculate your score?
Yeah.
So when you get a test back, like if you get 20 out of 150, first of all, you probably should study a little more. But if that's your score, why would you divide those? What are you finding when you divide those two numbers? Which represents your percent, right? This is the part of the whole that you got correct. right? So that's why it's so important to kind of have these different pieces and know what each one represents so that you know what you have and what you're solving for, okay? But back to this. What do you want to do? Jack?
So we'd take the 20%, and if you had a calculator, you could just do 20%, or you could turn it into a decimal. And
Which you do have a calculator, right?
So yeah, so do 20%, and then you would multiply that by 150.
So essentially, we're trying to find 20% of 150. Do
Yes.
you even need a calculator for that?
No.
Why not?
Yes. Because you can do the tens.
Okay. What else could you do? Right. This goes back to PO23, where we have that multiplication method. 2 times 15, right? Equals 30. We know that there are 30 books on the top shelf. 50% of 150. Give me a method we can solve for 50% of 150, Blake.
So same thing as Jack, but you can take you can turn it into a decimal and then do the decimal times 150.
Sure, you can convert 50% to a decimal and take 0.5 times 150, or you could multiply 5 times 15, kind of like we did in the previous one, or what fraction does 50% represent?
In half.
Half. What's half of 150? 75, right? There are so many different ways that you can think about these. You can look for those shortcuts. We haven't set a proportion or an equation yet, right? Everything that we did on the first page, we haven't even done yet, because this one is set up so well for the shortcut or going back to other things that we've done. Okay. Tell me now how we can calculate what 30% of 150 is. How many books are on the bottom shelf? Lexi?
You could do 150 times 0.3 or 15 times 3.
Okay, so we can set it up similar to what we did earlier here. 30% of 150, you can take 0.3 times 150 or 3 times 15. What else could you do? Haley? Yeah, since we've already solved for 2 of these, and we know that there are 150 total, how many books are already spoken for here? 105. How many more do we need to get to 150? 45. What's 3 times 15? 45, right? It all connects. It all connects. There are so many different ways you can get the correct answer. I think it was Kay that asked earlier, do we have to use a certain method on the test? No, you don't, right? You can look at these any way that you are able to, okay, to get there. Now, if you're disappointed that we didn't use a proportion or an equation, I apologize. We'll get back to that. But this one was just set up so well for other methods. That's why I put this one first. Okay. Your homeroom has sold 120 raffle tickets, which is 40% of your goal. How many tickets is the goal for your homeroom? I see an of, I see an is. What's our part? What's our whole? What's our percent? Let's start by identifying here. Part, whole, percent. Camille.
The part is 150.
We're on the second one now.
Oh, 120.
120. Okay. How do you know that's your part?
Because they haven't found the goal that they set yet.
Right. You haven't reached your goal yet. You're only 40% of the way there. That's the part of the goal that you've reached. Here's the word of your goal. So the goal is going to be the whole.
What's the answer for the top one?
Right there.
That's what you have to do. You just have to list those numbers.
The question is how many books are on each shelf. In red over here is how many books are on each shelf. Yeah. And which means that, and then our 40% is our percent here. Okay. So using the proportion method, part over whole equals percent over 100. Let's plug in what we know. Do we know the part?
Yeah.
Yes. Do we know the whole? No. We know the percent. That's 40. And then there's the 100. Okay? That's how we set it up as a proportion. Part over whole, 120 out of what equals 40%, 40 over 100. As an equation, part equals percent times whole. Our part is 120. Our percent is 40, but again, we're going to write that as a decimal here, 0.4. And then the whole is what we are solving for. Either way you want to do it, or both, if you really want to be super math, solve for the whole. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that now. Question or answer? Save it. Using the proportions or the equation, or possibly even both, what's your goal for the homework? Again, cross products is your method for the proportion. Equation solving is your method for ops operations, is your method for the equation. Quinn, what'd you come up with?
300.
300? Do we have a second on that?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, 300 would be the correct answer. If you did not get 300, now would be a great time to ask a question. Why?
Well, so first one I did you said do the 12 times 4 thing on the top. Cross product on the first one. Well, do we have to do cross products on this one?
If you set it up using a proportion, you could also use scale factor here, I suppose. But this is set up best for cross products.
Oh,
Did you do a different method?
Well, I got 300 when I did the equation one, but then what we did on the top question right there, I got 48.
So what did you multiply
I
to
did
get 48?
12 from 120.
Okay, so the difference is that when this is set up here, this is the percent times the whole, is what we did up here. Since we're solving for the whole, we can't do the same thing here. You notice how I've got the word of here, of 150, of 150, of 150. That means that 150 is the whole. When we're solving for the whole, we can't do what we did up top. Okay? Because the 120 is the part. It's not the whole. Okay? Questions on this one? Okay, let's look at the next one. Says the school sold 28,000 raffle tickets, which is 80% of the goal. How many tickets is the goal for the school? Is this one very similar to the last one?
Yeah.
When I was talking about the school, solve it. Go ahead. Set it up yourself. Proportion, equation, either way, other method, shortcut, whatever you want to do, solve it. Very similar setup to the previous one. Okay, there are your two setups for either proportions or the equation. If you weren't quite sure how to start or want to check, make sure you got it set up correctly. Part over whole equals percent over 100, or part equals percent times the whole. Who's ready for an answer here? Who's ready for an answer? Wyatt?
35,000.
35,000. Do I have a second on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Which method did you use?
I used the equation.
Okay. So using the equation method here, your one step to solve for the whole would be to divide both sides by 0.8 to cancel this out, right? And you get 35,000 equals the whole. Who used the proportion method? Couple? Okay. Cross products here. 28,000 times 100 equals 80 W. And so you'd multiply 28,000 by 100, divide by 80 to get W by itself, and you get 35,000 that way as well. Okay. Would it make sense to get an answer less than 28,000 here? No. So if you do make a mistake, if you put a number in the wrong spot, you can pretty easily say, whoa, that's wrong, right? A number less than 28,000 wouldn't be 80% of the goal, right? If you've only reached 80% of your goal wouldn't be less than what you've already sold. That wouldn't make any sense. Okay. The next one actually, Kate, this is kind of what you were alluding to earlier. You earned 24 out of 32 on a lit test. What is your percentage, right? We're solving for the percentage. That's pretty obvious because it asks us that. Which of those values is the part and which one's the whole? Lexi.
You do 32 divided by 24. Oh wait, yeah, okay. So the whole is 32 and
Yes.
the part is 24.
Yep. The part of the test you got right out of how many questions were on the test. Okay? And so you can set it up. Lexi said just 24 divided by 32 is going to give you the percentage as a decimal, which you then convert to a percentage, right? Yeah.
75.
Oh, yeah. And that equals 0.75, which you would convert to 75%. And that would be your score. So your homework for tomorrow is to work through the rest of just this page. You'll see on the next page, there's a slew of other questions. We'll work on that tomorrow. They're a little more to them. So for tomorrow for homework, just the rest of this page, these 3 questions. Do you think we could play the number game tomorrow with 3 homework questions?
You have a question about that?
Okay. Before we get to the last one, Dayton, do you think I'm going to require you to show your work on this?
Yes.
Yes. So if you come tomorrow and all you have are answers written down, are you going to get credit for it?
No.
Yes.
No, you will not. Shay, what's your question on the last one?
I don't understand it.
It says, after biking for an hour, you have burned 320 calories, which is 35% of your goal for the day. How many calories are you hoping to burn that day? So like the others, we're going to identify what are we given. 320. Is that a part, a whole, or a percent?
Part and percent.
We're given the part, and we're given the percent, which means we're solving for, right, of your goal. Okay? And you can set it up proportion, equation, either way you want to do. Jack.
Okay, so Ray is not here today, correct? So, and
Where are you going with this?
well, because if he's not here, he might not know to do the homework.
No, if you're absent, then you get an extra day for.
So we can still play number game if he doesn't.
Yes, I never count an assignment late if you missed a day of school when the assignment was assigned. If I assigned this yesterday and you were gone today, you'd still be responsible for it tomorrow if you were here when it was assigned.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can play if he doesn't turn in.
Yes, because he's gone today.
Whatever.
Lexi.
For the last one, you get like a really weird number, so do we just round?
Yes. I believe at the top it does say round decimal answers to nearest 10th or something like that. So take a look at the directions. Yeah, it says round decimal answers to nearest 10th. So, all right, I'm gonna let you go. Homework tomorrow. Let's say math.
Don't forget to like,